Hey everyone, it's Frankie-Lou. I'm coming to you from the garden at the Grow to Gather Homestead. I just wanted to show you my new rhubarb and strawberry tiered bed that I've made here. And I also wanted to discuss how some tips here on how to plant rhubarb and how to use rhubarb more effectively. Because if you've been a subscriber, you know I'm a bit of a rhubarb fanatic. And you might be thinking, don't you have enough? But I can never have enough rhubarb. So I'm going to show you this bed and how effective it can be, and also some tips on splitting rhubarb, because honestly it's amazing how much you can make one rhubarb plant go if it's a good plant that's been there for a while. So the theory for this bed is the bottom layer will be rhubarb on either side, and the top two layers will be strawberries and chives. And that's been very effective for me. I've used this style over in a couple other places, but I had one rhubarb plant that wasn't looking so hot and it's been in the same spot for years, so I decided, well, let's move it and build it in a new box. It was time to reconfigure this part of the garden anyways. It's this part of the garden's almost 8 years old, so some of the boxes were getting a little bit gnarly, and I thought it was time to rebuild with 4x4 size, which is my favorite size. And these tiered ones work really well for the rhubarb and the strawberries together. So first I'm going to show you where I took the rhubarb plant out of to start with, because it's really quite remarkable, and I think that's an important thing for you to see, is how big that rhubarb root gets. Because honestly, it's like digging up a tree. It's actually woody where the root is, if it's been established for long enough. So I normally do put hardware cloth underneath beds in order to prevent the rodents from getting in. But in this one I didn't, and I just put some layers of cardboard underneath to help with the weeds to start that first year. Because that rhubarb, I want my rhubarb roots to be able to go down deep, dig down deep into the garden. So their garden box. So that's why this one won't have hardware cloth underneath it. I do find, fingers crossed, that the rodents do tend to leave rhubarb alone. They don't tend to go into my other rhubarb beds. I don't know why that is. Probably it's a reason, something to look up. But I wanted to have nice depths for it to go. So these are good thick. This is a 12 inch boards that I'm using as the bottom layer, and so I know that the rhubarb the first year will probably take up that spot, and then it'll continue to dig down. So let me show you a couple of things here, and then we'll come back to this box and I'll show you how I planted it up. Okay, so first off I wanted to show you how well the rhubarb is doing in this one particular raised bed. As you can see, it's quite a deep one, right? I made it very deep, and the rhubarb is appreciating it. I harvest so much rhubarb out of this bed every year. There's a whole video about that if you want to see that, how to harvest and use rhubarb. That was using this bed, and I took probably pounds and pounds and pounds of rhubarb out of this year, last year, and it looks like it's going to be doing pretty good again this year as well. It really is one of my favorite perennial crops. I just make sure I feed it really well. I amend it with compost both in the spring and the fall. I know some people believe you only have to do it once, but honestly I find that it enjoys it when I do feed it twice. Okay, here we are at the dig site. This is where I got my rhubarb plant from. It wasn't doing well here, so I dug a big hole and took it out. I found out why it wasn't doing well. There actually was an ant colony living right inside of it. They had hollowed out the middle and had dug and built a nest in there. So, but you can see here, there's still portions of the root, okay, and on this side as well. And this is just part of the root I took out yesterday. It's basically just like a piece of wood. So that, I think, is an important point to make, is that I can't stress how strong the rhubarb roots are. And I could spend some time digging that out, but honestly I'm going to just cover that up with dirt. It could die, and if it doesn't, there will be another plant that I can harvest and move somewhere else next year, which is great. Okay, I always like having another source of rhubarb around. So as you can see, rhubarb has a very significant root system, so it's really important that you have it in a well-placed spot that you're not going to have to worry about moving it. I have kept rhubarb in pots, but for one season. You can split rhubarb in the fall as well, and I have done that, but then not been able to get into the ground in time and moved it into the spring. And that's when I've kept it in a pot, and it has done fine. It's pretty hard to kill, so 15 splits. I put 6 in this bed here. There's one here, like there's 3 on each side, and I watered them well. They're gonna do well. I used some good quality garden soil, and I also put a ton of compost in because rhubarb is a heavy feeder, and I do want to feed it well because it feeds me well. Okay, so I put a ton of my nice compost that I get courtesy of these lovely creatures you see here, which are taking care of some of the weeding that needs to be done in this bed. And then I put 6 in this bed, 3 on each lower layer, and I've got a bunch in these pots. I'll give a few away to friends if they want them right away, and if not, I'm just keeping them in the pot so they don't dry out. They will go into something much bigger as soon as they possibly can. Okay, so I guess the point is with rhubarb is to ensure that you've got it well fed. Okay, that's very important because it does produce so much. You can actually take 2 good harvests, spring and fall, from rhubarb if you treat it properly. It's one of the first things that's going to come up every year. Nothing else much except the horseradish and the walking onions are up right now, except for that. And you also want to ensure that you have it in a spot where it's got nice, deep, well-fed soil. You want to have it so that it has a lot of full sun, but I find that it doesn't require as much shelter as some plants do. It seems to be pretty hardy and can handle our hailstorms here in southern Alberta even. So I hope that's helpful. I hope that maybe, particularly if you have a neighbor who's asking you, they're splitting their rhubarb up and want to give you a plant, honestly, it's worth the effort to build a little spot for it because it is one of the most productive plants that we have in our garden here at the Gather Homestead, and I use it in tons of preserving, and you can see videos about that on our channel if you like. And if you have any questions about rhubarb, I love to answer questions about rhubarb, so please let me know because I'm a bit obsessed with this plant, and my goal is to make you as well. So I hope that was helpful. Let us know if you have any questions, and I hope you'll take this chance to grow together today. Have a good one.